suji ni boni ya fuo ka atomo semichire.
Hello. Unia udofo wadamfo Joshua Edunie. Ena so yo Yakopon na dom ene ne pe. Ya sanso ehye bio e Charlie Benz TV so. Odwumadi a ya to din say ana ye di bisa asam say. Do you understand what you are reading? Ne wokin kan no woti ase. Ya no guso ehwe adesua bi about the story of Jesus Christ. It is the greatest story ever told in the world. If you are seeing me na obi eni hodum a wa ba wiase ha a no ho asam ai bible say Awurade Yesu Kristo. Na no ho asam ampa abehia ama wiase. No ho asam nipa bebre atu o ho asi wo say obesua bibia fa no. One ma wo pena asam won pena asam. One wo gine di won gine di. You see, one G Yesu ndimpo ade chi a working kai Bible. No wa pe bibia fa no ho. E da kaseti ya no. In the end no, still almost kind bibia no musua bibi fa no ho. The story of Jesus Christ. Myth or truth. Awurade Yesu Kristo no ho asam. E ya trosam anasa ye no kore. Eye nada eye botribo kabi a obi abo nitrimu ka ana say eye no kwaresem eno na eno edi hunkomo eno nti ye hwe evidences ahodo facts and proofs a ebetumi adi adanse na akire say Awurade Yesu Kristo ho asem no enya atrosem ne mo ye no kore. So yeguso a sisi arade ye de ne miracles a oye no asi ho na ye kasafa ho e dey prove yen point ne say ne ye kafa Yesu Kristo ho say ofiro Onyankopon ho ne baaye no e no kore onye nipa bia keke a ye di ne ho agro na mmom no o de tumi kese ba asase we so no be demonstrate e de kire say oye a man of authority. O wasase so no he spoke, he taught with authority. Na kire mpo no o kire otumu se tumi bi ewo mu. Ne nyama bebre a oyeye e di adanse se obi ante se ono obi no ma obawi ase ha o te se ono Yesu Kristo dabi. Eno nti na watwe abesen kworo na ye hwe Yesu Kristo ne authority no se de osi a demonstrate on God's creation. Enti ye hwe ni supernatural knowledge na owo a ehia so bi beka bibi akire Yesu ansa Yesu ehu no kore wa adekono no ye hu ni supernatural knowledge a owo say ne wo ebi adwen mu otumi ehu obi wo baabi otumi hu no a on physically on nante ko ni pakono nchen ana ni pakono nante ba ne nchen ye be hu ni authority say no si demonstrate ewo ensuo so or did the law of gravity eto baby non nanti ensuo so mane yeye osanyarwa instantly enya niesa bia do koto garden mu na eno so wanu ndro ye bohumpa ye na wo ye hu akomkire dabi enya ntiatie mu ye do koto aso dan mu ya tietie mu egu so saa ansa na de kono eno mpom ye mpo a enkosi aga Awurade Yesu Kristo abra obi beka che ne say ne bayare also ko wati apo as simple as that. Yes, abra kwatani bi asra na yarusa odene saka no se ko wanya wa yarusa ko oni freni afsra na yarusa ose ko wati apo ampara so wati apo so ampa amo sorry ready na chi aye instantly enti sa wo nya obi a wotai sua Bible a won cheda ennim ne Bible eka efa miracles ho ani se na Yesu ye ne niam a ene apostles ne ye ya na sa wo de ne wuni mu an ne wo TV so na wote e wo radio so na wo hu wo crusade ase na en na wonnim Kristosom en na wonnim bibia fa Yesu Kristo ho ntiti yeye na bebo wo. Last week me no ba wi ana me kire en yarewa ahodo Awurade Yesu Kristo esae no ebi ma yankinkan John chapter 5 from verse 1 near possible. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Verse 2. Now there is in Jerusalem, by the sheep gate, a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. Verse 3. In this lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. Verse 4. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first, after the stirring of the water, was made well of whatever disease he had. Verse 5. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. Verse 6. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he already had been in that condition a long time, he said to him, Do you want to be made well? Verse 7. The sick man answered him, Say, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, but while I am coming, another steps down before me. Verse 8. Jesus said to him, Rise, take up your bed and walk. Verse 9. And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. You see? So immediately na ye kan wasam no. Eno ne ye. Anya na Debbie. Yesu Kristo, very simple. Oye Nyankopon, he is almighty. He is omnipotent. Owo tumi na no wa hodin na ne oka no eye ho. So, I simple say, or say rise, take up your bed and walk. Sorry? Okate na odaso bobo. Fa okate nante na call baby. Ono okono. Okokra. Ohia say wako tonsuo mu ase wonya na yaresa. 38 years. Few seconds. Ono okono. Watiapo. That was and that is Jesus Christ. What in nipa anhumbone afu wonomu etete won Ewurade Yesu Kristo e kire say owo tumi e wa honhomfi eso. Yankenkan Matthew chapter 8 verses 28 to 34. When he had come to the other side, to the country of the Gerasenes, there met him 2 demon-possessed men, coming out of the tombs, exceedingly fierce, so that no one could pass that way. 29. And suddenly they cried out, saying, What have we to do with you, Jesus, you Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time? Verse 30. Now a good way off from them there was a herd of many swine feeding. 31. So the demons begged him, saying, If you cast us out, permit us to go away into the herd of swine. 32. And he said to them, Go. So when they had come out, they went into the herd of swine, and suddenly the whole herd of swine ran violently down the steep place into the sea and perished in the water. 33. Then those who kept them fled, and they went away into the city and told everything including what had happened to the demon-possessed man. 34. And behold, the whole city came out to meet Jesus. And when they saw him, they begged him to depart from their region. Wow. This is Jesus Christ. The story of Jesus Christ is not a myth. Yes. It is the truth. No kreno eno ano. Asem bi eni hu. Awomone na wu Yesu. Ama wo hu Yesu no o mankasa frase pa Yesu chewo. Oma frase tiem esu fra Yesu se yenim se wonya ma oni yehie de ye ho beka. Yenim se wonya ma wo hye de wo betu ye afra ko yi mu. Etu na yesere wo. Wo chewa ni. Se wo tu yen a ma yen kwhye mpra ko yi mu. No ma de kire won se Yesu mo makwhye mpra ko no ma fo mu adi free. Omo kwhye mpra ko mu ne ba ya ne se omo ina oti do omo go pu mu e perishe. That is it. This is miracle. Yes, you know, catch one say go. Mungo. Nampa omu tu free mu. You see, asama free Yesu Kristo no mu ba no. Emu ye du tumi wo mu. Yes, tumi edi Yesu Kristo asam achi. Papa ye. Na Peter kan asem bi efa asama free Yesu no mu aba ho. Na enche ye bekan eno so ho asam. But apart from the AC or Matthew chapter 80, Yanko kind being so ewo Mark chapter 9. There has some more. Mark chapter 9 from verse 14. And when he came to the disciples, he saw a great multitude around them and scribes disputing with them. 15. Immediately when they saw him, all the people were greatly amazed and running to him, greeted him. 16. And he asked the scribes, what are you discussing with them? Verse 17. Then one of the crowd answered and said, Teacher, I brought you my son, who has a mute spirit. Verse 18. And wherever it seizes him, it throws him down. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. So I spoke to your disciples that they should cast it out, but they could not. 19. He answered him and said, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I bear with you? Bring him to me. Verse 20. Then they brought him to him. And when he saw him, immediately the spirit convulsed him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed, foaming at the mouth. 21. So he asked his father, how long has this been happening to him? And he said, from childhood. 22. And often he has thrown him both into the fire and into the water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. 23. Jesus said to him, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. 24. Immediately the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. 25. When Jesus saw that the people came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirits, saying to it, deaf and dumb spirits, I command you, come out of him and enter him no more. 26. Then the spirit cried out, convulsed him greatly, and came out of him, and he became as one dead, so that many said, he is dead. 27. But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. 28. And when he had come into the house, his disciples asked him privately, why could we not cast it out? 29. So he said to them, this kind can come out by nothing but prayer and fasting. Arade Yesu Kristo wasan akoye bio na wo hwa sa demonia spirit evil spirit here no possess this boy no or very stubborn. Yes, nanso Yesu Kristo extra to me where the power lies. Yes. Or chance to me be ewo. So Sir Jesus Christ your by we as by ye near kasa in sanchene bebre yi. Sir Jesus Christ no one some na ye ka. Na sansam na ye ka no nya asam a obi na ahye da atena se wa concoct bibi wa tro bibi dia bra yen se yan gintumu we yen se ma esiye eyewitnesses never bebre edun wani hu ye nti nye obi na kwose kokua mu e no tro ye hwan no wa ba wiase ha o so wotumi a ono so tumi ye niam bi a Yesu ye ibi dabi and say Yesu Kristo eye Yahweh the provider. Ampa, he demonstrated his ability to provide for people's needs. Yesu Kristo edani tumi edi ede boy solve nipa problems ema ne nipa hia nipa nsakaye na mu bi ne say o ma nipa aduane ediye na kwan ofa so ma nipa aduane diye no eye extraordinary there be abura dwene ntiase so say o feeding for 5,000. Yankai Matthew chapter 14 verses 13 through 21. When Jesus heard it, he departed from there by boat to a deserted place by himself. But when the multitudes heard it, they followed him on foot from the cities. And when Jesus went out, he saw a great multitude, and he was moved with compassion for them, and healed their sick. 15. When it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is already late. Send the multitudes away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves food." 16. But Jesus said to them, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." 17. And they said to him, "We have here only 5 loaves and 2 fish." 18. He said, "Bring them here to me." 19. Then he commanded the multitudes to sit down on the grass, and he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and broke and gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitudes. 20. So they all ate and were filled, and they took up 12 baskets full of the fragments that remained. 21. Now those who had eaten were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Just say, "Emma bunka." Yes, no munimu, but just say, "Young kind man and kind of frank." In Mary Mumpin form, 5,000. Omu didi Emma, just omu wie no. Asian pro one kwano omu geda 12 baskets. Wow. This is Jesus Christ. The story of Jesus Christ. Yes, Christ wants me. No to me ye. Apart from this incident, so Matthew chapter 15, 29 to 39, so Osanso Emma another 4,000 aduane Emma wodi. And actually, there is a miraculous catch. And also Peter num eche nam nwanwaso Emma ebroma dwena mutiase so. Mayankan Luke chapter 5. So it was, as the multitude pressed about him to hear the word of God, that he stood by the lake of Gennesaret and saw 2 boats standing by the lake, but the fishermen had gone from them and were washing their nets. 3. Then he got into one of the boats, which was Simon's, and asked him to put out a little from the land, where Peter in the boat. And he sat down and taught the multitudes from the boat. Verse 4. When he had stopped speaking, he said to Simon, "Launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch." After your kasa wie no preach wie no ka che Peter say, "Wo net no to go akire ho no, be ho do no na fa che nam." But Simon answered and said to him, Master, we have toiled all night and caught nothing. Nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the nets. Peter said, Owura, anadwumu nyinaa yɛyɛ adwuma saa amade akye. Yɛnya hwee. Nanso, wasɛm no nti. Ɛsiane sɛ asɛm wɔ efiri wo hɔ na ɛreba nti. Mɛyɛ no sɛnea waka. Na yɛhwɛ ne esiye. Verse 6. And when they had done this, they caught a great number of fish, and their net was breaking. 7. So they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both the boats so that they began to sink. 8. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. You see, Peter, actually, ever since I started fisherman business, fishing business now, Peter, I for all his life. As a matter of fact, on chase Adam Nibida. Yes, on cheap bida. And this time, watching my bone adrenaline and tears. Jesus was not a fisherman. Nanso, Yesu kyerɛ say, to ade no gu wɔ na bɛkyɛ Ochenema ma afei no omu boat tu ni na ne ye ma afei na esenke. In the first place, the net was breaking, na net netete. And sana afei no omu de afili omu boat na wie no boat no so aye mama esenke. Yes. When we now know di adanse akyere who Jesus was and who Jesus is. So bibiara ye kan fa Awurade Yesu Kristo hu biara no, we know what we are talking about. Bi obia ni wono wa ba wiase ha no mo a ne Yesu Kristo be ye no watima ye mu baako ana mienu. Dabi. Na no nti ema Yesu Kristo aya soronko. Ema Yesu Kristo ho asem no, eye asem a eye anibrese ma wo se nipa agidi na etu ho anamon. Papa yi. Yes, Awurade Yesu Kristo. Owotumi awo bone so. We can Mark chapter 2 verses 1 to 12. Obubuafo na wode ne call Yesu enchen se onsa ne yare no. Wode ne etu dan so fa dan no so ejeja no tu Yesu anim odan bebe Yesu gina no. Asema Yesu Kristo kan ya ne se oba wode obani achewo. Sorry na fa akete nako. Israel for the Jew for no asofo mpanifo no ti say Yesu say obi ode obi bone a che na o type o adenti na Yesu tumi de obi bone e che no. Yes, so nye onyankopon a onni tumi a otumi fa obi bone e fa nche na saa. Na mpa Awurade Yesu Kristo enyane ewufo. So kan John chapter 1 verse 4. Maya ko kan asem ho ne tie. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. Yesu Kristo mu na enkwa wo. Na enkwa no abeye nipa ehan. Enti se Yesu enkwa wo ne mu dia. Otumi ma nipa enkwa. Won ma wo wu no, otumi ma won enkwa ema no yeyie. Na no nti Yesu nyane ewufuo. So kan Luke chapter 7 verses 11 to 17. Yesu enyane ewufuo. Mayen kan yintie. I say, now it happened the day after that he went into a city called Nain, and many of his disciples went with him, and a large crowd. And when he came near the gate of the city, behold, a dead man was being carried out, and the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and a large crowd from the city was with her. Verse 13. When the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her and said to her, do not weep. 14. Then he came and touched the open coffin, and those who carried him stood still. And he said, young man, I say to you, arise. Verse 15. So he who was dead sat up and began to speak, and he presented him to his mother. Wow. Nipa na wawu na dada kamu na wode no ekọ no. Yesu Kristo chese abranche man you sorry. Sorry. Wo mama ye kunafo, wo ba tena ase no wa hwe no kakra no. Wo weja mama, wo na hwe mama. Sorry. Ewa pa abranche na wa sorry atena daka emu a wodi nkomo yi. Wow. This is miracle. Miracle. Urafi John chapter 11. Lazarus ewuye no. A wo kosie no. Onya 4 days. Lazarus enya 4 days. We wu 4 days. But already Yesu Kristo could do one more. Ah, na ebinom so say aye too late. Say Yesu wo ha no mo a. Anka ye ne nka wanwu. Nanso ede na Yesu Kristo From verse 38. Then Jesus, again groaning in himself, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. 39. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of him who was dead, said to him, "Lord, by this time there is a stench, for he has been dead 4 days." Everybody sabre de wa bom. Sabre opro. A son said, "Well, you said 4 days ni." Verse 40, Jesus said to her, "Did I not say to you that if you would believe, you will see the glory of God?" Man can't tell us, Martha. Man can't tell us, "So would you dear? Verse 41. Then they took away the stone from the place where the dead man was lying. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me." 42. And I know that you always hear me. But because of the people who are standing by, I said this, that they may believe that you sent me. 43. When he had said these things, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." 44. And he who had died came out bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Loose him and let him go." Yes. And some are kind of saying, "But yeah, or mine no nipa na atwehye no be dia tum se ono Yesu Kristo ni onyankopon na eye adwuma enti na oka asa owie no o se Lazarus kan pie bra." So Lazarus na wasori o sorry ya mpa no ho niema a edwadwa no ho ndire o se munsana no man ko ne baby. This is what we are talking about. Say Jesus Christ until so be akeke.
Yesu ji ni bon yefuo ka adon semyi chire wona we fisur kwan ho ni wona waji asi siso to you Kristo ji boy